After the international break, we refocus on the finale of the MLS regular season, and Inter Miami can set a record with a win this weekend. We dive into it on the Inter Miami Weekly Show. Well, Kieran Gibbs, Arsenal great, you feel at home because we're here at Chase Stadium and it's raining again. It feels like England. Happy to have you with us once again on the Inter Miami Weekly Show. I'm Joe Malfa. Kieran, we had a good international break off, and now it's time to refocus on what could be a record-setting weekend here for Inter Miami. A win against New England, and it sets the all-time points record. New England of 2021 had 73. Inter Miami this year has 71. So it could be against the team who holds the record that Inter Miami steals away the record. Could also tie the record for wins in the post-shootout era. Early days, remember, of MLS, you had the shootout, which still technically counted as a regulation win. It was very weird and different. So the all-time record for wins in MLS is 24 if you count that, but post-shootout era, the wins record is 22, and that would be the 22nd win this weekend for Inter Miami. So you could tie the wins record of that 2021 New England team. You can beat the points record. That's what's at stake, and I think the team's aware of it, Kieran, because if you go back to that win against Toronto now a week and a half ago, after the game, Julian Gressel was asked about the record, and he said we'd be lying if we said we weren't aware of it, and it's something that we hope we can give our fans at home in the season finale.
Yeah, I mean, it's too big of a piece of history to completely ignore, so I'm sure they're all aware of it. And again, so fitting that it has to be against New England.
Right.
It kind of just sums up Miami's season at the moment with the way that the coincidences that have happened and the records that they can break. It feels like one of those potentially iconic seasons that we've said many times before. I'm actually happy that they have a game that is so important.
Yes.
Even though that they've clinched the Supporters' Shield already, because they need that. They need something to play for. These players that are such great players. For them to just play a game where they've already won the Supporters' Shield, and they need some kind of motivation. And I've played in games where they don't really mean much, and even though players say that every game means much, no matter what, I think that this is important leading into the playoffs and that all wanting MLS Cup. So I don't worry that they're going to take their foot off the gas. I think that they're all going to be fully focused, and an amazing chance to see history. And
it's especially important because the point you bring up about having a game that means something, that same 2021 New England team that we can pass with the record-setting win here, they lost in the first round of the MLS Cup playoffs after setting those records. And the reason was, in hindsight, they had such a long layoff. They went 3 weeks between their regular season finale and then their opening round playoff match. Now, the playoff format is different. Back then, it was a knockout, one game in the first round. New England lost on penalties to the eventual champions NYCFC. Now, this year, we have that best-of-3 series in the first round. So it's a little bit different, but they had 3 weeks off. And Kieran, if this game turned into essentially a friendly, because Inter Miami had nothing to play for and New England's already long eliminated, then it would have really been about 3 weeks between competitive matches, because it was October 5th against Toronto, and it would be that weekend of October 28th, that first playoff match. So you would have gone 3 weeks, which would have been another eerie parallel to this New England team. So it's a good thing that it means something, because it's too long of a layoff to go. Because of the international break last week, it's too long of a layoff to have no competitive action.
No, it's too long. It's too long. And especially with the rhythm that they have at the moment and the momentum, you don't want anything to break that. So I'm sure that it will be full focus on the weekend, because what other chances? How many chances are you going to get to? When did that happen?
This record was 2021, but before that, though, it was a long time ago that the record was initially set. It was back earlier days of I guess the new MLS era, because back in the day they didn't play enough games to get that many points, but.
Yeah.
Modern era, it took a little while. New England did it. It's been 3 years, and it doesn't. Again, it's because of a special team. If you look beyond Inter Miami this year, nobody else is close to that record. It's a special team in a special year. So, to your point, you don't have too many opportunities like this.
Exactly. So, I'm really excited for this one. I mean, I'm going to have to pull up to the game and make sure that the boys get the job done. It will be amazing to see, not only for the players, but for the owners and everyone involved in the club, but most importantly, the La Familia,
of course,
and how much they've had to go through in the last few years in this early infancy of the club, the downs that they've gone through, the highs. This would just cap off a remarkable, iconic season.
Absolutely, and it's a full circle moment too, because going back to that 2021 New England team, on the last day of the season, New England was at home. They were the top team. Inter Miami was in 11th place that year, and everybody wrote off Inter Miami, but it was Inter Miami who went at New England, and Blaise Matuidi scored in a 1-0 victory for Inter Miami. So now 3 years later, this record is attainable because Inter Miami upset New England on the last day of the season 3 years ago. So if not for that goal from Blaise, if not for that win, that New England team would have had either 74 or 76 points, and this record would not be attainable this weekend. So thank you to past Inter Miami for present Inter Miami being able to maybe set this record. So it all comes full circle in the end. And now after this weekend, then let's wait and see. We don't know who the playoff opponent is going to be because of the nature of being in first place. You're going to have that 8-9 wild card playoff game in the coming midweek. So we don't know who the playoff opponent is going to be yet. It could be any number of Philly, Montreal, D.C., Atlanta could even take the spot. So it's one of 4 possible teams we'll find out this weekend and then the midweek with the wild card. But Kieran, last one for you, and we'll wrap things up. The mindset of a player coming into a game like this. You can set a record. You know that a week after, it's what matters most in the playoffs. How do you kind of tiptoe that line between wanting to set that record and keep that rhythm that you mentioned, but also wanting to make sure that you are healthy and you don't pick up a red card and you are good to go for what matters most next week in the postseason?
Oh yeah, and I've said it, countless times this season that I think that the only Achilles heel that Miami are going to have is discipline and emotion, because we know emotion runs high, especially with the season that they're having and the players that we have. Everyone wants to make an impact and show their what they're worth to the team, but there's definitely a fine line, and so that has to be reminded by Tata at all times. Even at halftime of games, during games, you have to keep your head cool and not let your heart rule your head. So I hope that they do that. They keep their emotions in check. Still a lot to play for in the season, and I want them to enjoy it as well. I hope they enjoy it because they've had such a great season. They've put on a show for everyone, and they deserve to put in another top performance, last regular home game of the season, and let's hope it's one to remember for the fans as well.
That's all to play for this Saturday night right here behind us at home at Chase Stadium against New England to set that record. And Kieran, believe it or not, that is a wrap on our regular season editions of the Inter Miami Weekly Show. It's been 34 matches. It's been a supporter shield, maybe a record, but we're just getting started. We hope you are with us here on YouTube. Make sure you like and subscribe all the way through, hopefully December, when an MLS Cup title is lifted for Inter Miami, and we will break it all down every week on the Inter Miami Weekly Show.